think the pattern with addicts and alcoholics is it's either trying to fit in or trying to escape, or a combination of the two.
Well, I have Dora Gosselin on this program with me today. Dora, thank you for coming on to the Carla Rand Show. I want to talk to you because we're actually family. So you're my husband's cousin.
That's right.
And you have quite a story. And so I want to hear your story, and I want to hear your kind of tips and tricks, specifically talking about addiction, because a lot of people struggle with addiction. I've struggled with addiction in a lot of ways too. For me, it was been more food, food addiction, that kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of layers to this. But let's start with you, Dora. Where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, first of all, Carla, thanks for having me on the show. And it's different to be sitting on a show with a family member. This is a first.
Yes.
But I'm really excited to be here. So thanks for inviting me on. I struggled with alcoholism and addiction for 30 years. And my career in drinking and drugging began in high school. And like many other people who get caught up in addiction or alcoholism, that's where it begins. From my time in recovery so far, as you know, I have my own podcast where I talk with people in recovery that are overcome alcoholism and addiction. And from my own podcast experience, most addicts and alcoholics start off in high school. And from all of my experience in interviews, I have come to the conclusion that the best place to talk about this is in high school. A lot of people actually have had their first drink by the time they're 11 years old. And by the time they're 13, they're sneaking around. And by the time they're 14 or 15, they're already using it to fit in, to fit into a school system or that awkward teenage years that we all go through. So that's how my experience took off. I grew up in a very Christian, loving, but religious and strict background. And, with some time in recovery, I've been able to reflect on those years growing up as a child. But I was the first daughter, the first granddaughter, the first cousin, the first everything on both sides of the family. So, my parents, looking back, they didn't have experience, or they didn't have other siblings to say, how are you raising your kid? They were like cutting down the trees and like carving their own path in the world. Right. So they didn't have, people to look up to or to ask, how are you doing it with your kids? So looking back, I have that perspective now. And I was blazing my own path too. I didn't like the strictness. That's where it all came in from. I wasn't allowed to get married till I was an adult, which was going to be, 20. And I definitely wasn't allowed to date anybody until I was going to get married. So if I couldn't date anybody until I was going to get married at the age of 20, then I couldn't talk to boys. And because I couldn't talk to boys, I couldn't talk to my parents about boys. So there was like this considerable lack of communication breakdown. Like, I love my parents now today. All of my family, super supportive of my recovery. But looking back with reflection, I can see there was this considerable lack of communication breakdown because I was not allowed to do so many things that teenagers go through. I didn't have that communication.
Do you think that's a pattern? Like, do you think that, like, when you talk to addicts, people that have struggled with that, is that a consistent pattern? Or, I mean, it probably just depends a lot, hey?
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, there's a lot. I think the pattern with addicts and alcoholics is it's either trying to fit in or trying to escape, or a combination of the two. You're either trying to fit into a high school or university, or fit into the in crowd, and drinking and drugging is a very easy way to slide in. Start being funny, not care because you're drunk and you're making everybody laugh. So that's an easy way to fit into a crowd. And then later on, as the addiction and alcoholism begins and you've crossed that line, then often it's an escape, or it's an escape in young kids from abusive scenarios or mental health issues. So it's either fitting in or escaping from your reality.
What was it for you, Dora?
For me, I think it was a lot about fitting in. I went from a very small town, a town that was so small it was not even a town, it was a village in the middle of nowhere, Fort Nelson, BC. And when I grew up there, there was one high school in town, and I was in a Christian school. And I went from a Christian school into the high school in a very small community. And I was kicked out in the first week for drinking on the property. And I felt like I needed to fit in, or I was going to get bullied, being the girl from the Christian school. So it was like I almost had this sense like I in order to fit in, I had to be rebellious. And that's exactly what I did. I slid in there, making a name for myself so I wouldn't get bullied as the goody two shoes.
So you're like, I'll show you that I'm not the goody two shoes.
Yeah.
Watch me
And
go.
so alcoholism and addiction is all about balance and the pendulum swinging, one way too far. Like, I cannot today have just a drink. You cannot tell an alcoholic, like, can't you just have one? Like, can't you just, no, that is the whole issue. That is what makes me as an alcoholic, is that I can't just have one. So since I've been in recovery for a little over 3 years now, for the first time in my life, I have found that to be true, is that I can't just have one drink. And for many years, I didn't know I was an alcoholic or an addict because I held down a job most times. I paid my bills most time. For me, my idea growing up, an alcoholic was that homeless person or somebody that was literally drinking out of a brown bag and living under a bridge and had a gambling problem. Like, that was an alcoholic.
Mhm.
And things have changed so much today, which I am so thankful to be a part of this movement. And like, people are talking about mental health. People are talking about addiction and alcoholism more freely. And, during the years and the time when I grew up, people didn't talk about it. I mean, I think more than you drank to fit in, because if you weren't drinking, people say, why aren't you drinking? Now it's a little bit more of, why aren't you drinking? Well, because I'm into fitness, I'm into yoga, and who cares? It's more acceptable. But when I grew up, you stood out if you weren't drinking. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you drinking?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot more talk around it these days, which is fantastic. This disease of alcoholism and addiction affects families around the world on a global scale. And it doesn't matter how much money you make or where you grew up or what you have or what you don't have. I mean, it's tearing families apart around the world. And it happens every single day. But I also feel like there is this huge recovery and mental health movement, which I love. I don't know if it's because I'm in recovery now, so I'm seeing it more, but I feel like, more people are speaking up about it. And now there's more of a sense of it being okay to ask for help. Before it was like almost like a sign of weakness. And now it's like, if somebody reaches out to you, Carla, and says, you know what, Carla, I've been struggling with alcohol for the last 10 years, and I just have to tell one person, and you're the person I want to tell. I can like 99% guarantee you that you would meet them with love and try to help them, not say, what do you mean you have a problem with alcohol? Just drink less,
Yeah.
Like, that's not the answer.
Yes. Yeah. And thank you for what you do, like for sharing your story, Dora, and for your Soberoso podcast too, because I think it's so powerful, like you said, for people to talk about it. And I don't think it's just because you're going through this, because I've noticed that too, this huge shift to talk more about mental health, to understand that people are going through rough things, and to not be so critical and be so judgmental of somebody who's struggling. Like, it seems so ridiculous to me to think if somebody's struggling that you'd be like, oh, like, you're bad, right? It's like, no, like, they're trying to get help. And the thing is, and I'm sure you could attest to this, when you are an addict, when you are struggling with addiction, you're not going there. It's not about the drugs. It's not about the alcohol. It's not about the food or whatever it is that you're addicted to. There's something going on. There's a longing or a need that you're trying to fill with that, right? Whether it's to be accepted, whether it's to escape, whatever. So it's not about that, like the substance. It's about, it's really a mental health issue is what it comes down to. So Can you tell me a little bit about your recovery? Because there might be people that are listening, probably quite a few people
Mhm.
that are listening that know somebody that's struggling. So what
Right.
was the process that you had to take in order to start this, to get to the point where you are? So you been like what, like clean now for 3 years approximately, or how does
Clean
that?
and sober since December 2nd, 2018. So a little over 3 years, which is insane because like drinking and drugging was a part of my identity. It was a habit. So one of the first things I'll tell you, Carla, is that nobody chooses to become an alcoholic or an addict. Nobody says, you know what, I think that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to depend on alcohol and drugs to define me and to have a good time and to fit in and to escape. That sounds like a good idea. Nobody makes that choice consciously. And you hit the nail on the head. Is that the right word? You
Yeah,
hit
yeah.
that. You hit the nail right when you said, that it's not about the substance. It's about the underlying causes and conditions. And there is this invisible line that when you become an alcoholic or an addict, there's no like you have arrived sign and flashing saying, you know what, if you have this drink, you are officially an addict. You're officially now. Don't take this one. This is the last one. There's no signs going off. You don't know. But once you have passed that line, it's like the cucumber becoming a pickle. Once you're a pickle, you do not go back. You can't make a cucumber again out of it. You're done. It's this line that you have crossed. So like I mentioned earlier, I can't have a drink. That's why I'm an alcoholic, because one is never enough for me. I want more, and I don't have that control. When I take that first drink, this phenomenon of craving is awakened within me, and I want another one, and I want another one, and I don't have a stop or a filter. And that's a big part of what makes me an alcoholic and an addict, is that I don't have that stop. So I'm never going to be cured. I'm never going to be fully cured. Recovery is a constant progress, working, growing, healing, and but it's a beautiful journey. It is a beautiful journey.
So what have you discovered about yourself, Dora? Because taking this journey on to just, say, I need to get help, I need to do this recovery. I imagine you had to wrestle with all kinds of emptiness, people kind of face your demons or whatever the terminology is. Like,
Mhm.
how did you go through that? Did you go to therapy and stuff? Have you, was that helpful?
Well, it's again, there was no big flashing neon sign that said I was an alcoholic or an addict. So, in my own experience, looking back, there was a number of years where I guess I could kind of sense in my inner heart and my inner being that, maybe I was drinking more than I should, because I experienced a lot of blackouts. I would drink so much that I would have chunks of time completely gone. And I was too embarrassed to talk about those times with anybody. So there was an underlying sense that something wasn't right, because it gave me this sense of shame. And that sense of shame is what also holds people in addiction and alcoholism for a long time, is because they are embarrassed to reach out and admit that they have a problem. So for myself, the catalyst to me getting clean and sober was I had once again found myself in a horrible relationship. And looking back, that was the story of my addiction and alcoholism. I always ended up with the wrong guys for way too long, being mistreated, abused, used, taken advantage of. And this happened to me again. And the catalyst was I had left this guy after 3 years. I tried to leave him several times, and our relationship was filled with drugs and alcohol. And I'd always go back because he had broken my phone, or he had broken my laptop, or, there was something to pull me back, and it would start this cycle of insanity over again. Right. And then I'd be like, how did I get here again? So the catalyst for me to stop drinking was I'd left this guy one night, and I was like, that's it. Like, I'm not going back. And I found myself in a hotel room, and I fell down on the edge of the bed, and I cried out to a God I hadn't talked to in many years, and said, God, I need help. Help me stay away from this relationship that's going to kill me. And the next morning, I had blocked this guy from my phone. I grabbed my dog and I got in a taxi and grabbed a beer. And in that taxi ride, drinking a beer for the first time in my life, I had this aha moment that was like, maybe if I stopped drinking and drugging, I wouldn't make these bad decisions. Maybe if I stopped drinking and drugging, I'd have the strength I needed to stay away from this relationship that was literally going to kill me. Because I knew if I wasn't drunk or drugging, that this relationship wasn't good for me. But when I started drinking and drugging, all those decision making skills went out the window and I would be back in this same relationship, right? So I finally had this epiphany, and that was the last drink I ever had, was on that taxi ride. And I never did go back to the guy, and I never had another drink. And that's where my recovery journey began. Now, this guy, didn't make me an alcoholic or an addict. Once I found recovery, I realized that I had been probably an addict and alcoholic for at least 10 years prior. But this was my rock bottom. This was what I needed to wake up. And if it wasn't for this guy and this experience, I would have just kept on doing what I'd always done, which was always drinking, always drugging, always wondering why I was ending up in these situations, but not bad enough to do something about it. So this was the wake-up call I needed. And I did find the strength and I did find the courage. And since I began my recovery journey, not only have I put down like the alcohol and the substance, but I've also really learned to start loving myself for the first time. I can realize now that I was trying to fill a void. I was trying to pour substances, drugs, alcohol on it to make me feel complete. I was trying to have a man make me feel complete because I didn't know I could do that for myself. And now I do. Now I know, like, getting clean and sober was like the biggest act of self-love out there, and probably the biggest thing I could ever do to love myself. And it has been a gift that keeps on giving. And it not only to me, to my whole family, it's a ripple effect. Like, the ability I have to talk to my own kids and my own family about this shameful secret of addiction and alcoholism. The fact that I can talk openly on a podcast and my kids can call me up and say, oh my goodness, Mom, I didn't know yet that you did blah, blah, blah. And it's opened doors, and the communication I never had as a teenager, even with my own family today. And so my recovery and my healing, my growth is all about bringing those secrets and shame of addiction out into the light, asking for help, admitting when I need help, admitting when I'm struggling or having a bad day or a good day, showing up and being the light when somebody else is down, but also being able to say, like, today I'm not doing good. Today, I'm dealing with something so emotional that I wish I could just have 6 drinks and forget about it, but I can't do that anymore. So being able to show up who I am authentically on a good day or a bad day is huge. It's huge, not putting that mask on that everything's okay and just keeping those secrets deep inside, because our secrets are what keep us sick, and bringing them out to the light diminishes that shame.
So what would you say to someone, Dora, who is like, what do people need to know about addicts? Like, I know we've talked about this a little bit already, but somebody who's listening, who, maybe they've never struggled with addiction, maybe they don't know very many people who have. And so maybe they make their own judgments or whatever. But what would you say to them? What do we all need to know that maybe you can tell us to help us understand more about this?
Wow, that's a good question. I guess, if you had a family member or a loved one that was struggling with alcohol or drugs in any way, I would say probably one of the biggest things is that as a loved one, you almost can get into a point of enabling someone in addiction. So that would look like, let's say your son calls you up for the 20th time and says, Mom, I didn't go to work. I don't have a check, or somebody robbed me. Somebody robbed me for the 10th time. I can't pay my rent. I need $500. And as a mother, that your kid didn't get robbed for the 10th time. He's probably going to go get some more drugs. Or maybe you don't know, but 10 times of being robbed in a short time is like bizarre. Nobody else is calling you saying that, right?
Yes.
So I would suggest, not to enable by throwing money on it. You can help an addict or alcoholic out by um, offering to get them assistance, offering to find a 12-step recovery for them or a rehab facility, and saying, you know what, like, I love you too much to continue seeing you kill yourself and poison yourself. But if you're ready to make a change, I'll help you walk into this door and these people will help you out. So I would say that, rather than, like I said, throwing money on it, because that's not helping. That's not helping at all. But leading them to a place of recovery, or if you are not in a position to help them, somebody that is, that's probably the most help you could do for both of you. And the other thing that I would like you to know, or anybody that is just a loved one, is that the only time an alcoholic or addict is going to change is when they want to. They might appease you because you've threatened them with this, that, and the other, but the only time they're really going to change is when they want to. So if you're enabling them by throwing money at them once a month to help them pay their rent when they could just go out and get a job, instead you're giving them money once a month to be a loving parent or partner or whatever it is. If you take that away, you're almost making their options smaller. And that's the point, when they reach the gift of desperation, which is the acronym for God, the gift of desperation, when you get so desperate that you turn and yell like I did, pray out to a God that you didn't pray to and ask for help. But if you keep throwing money at it, you're enabling them.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, but I can see how it'd be very hard for a parent, but
Definitely.
like, that doesn't matter how hard it is. Enabling them is not helpful. And I feel like it's not just the parents that do this. I think it's the government sometimes, the district programs that they have. I don't know, people have talked about like forced rehab, getting people on the streets. Like, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know what you think about that, but like, do you feel like with some of the government programs, like let's say safe injection sites and that kind of thing, like how helpful do you think that is? Or have you thought through that? Like how could we, as like in a bigger picture, like let's say in Canada or in North America, is there things that we could do that would be more helpful?
You know what? I can't really comment on too much on that because, as you know, I'm living in Mexico. I'm Canadian, but I've been in Mexico.
Okay.
So I'm really not, feet on the ground there, aware of what's available and what not and what isn't. But what I can tell you from the 100 episodes and interviews I've done on my own podcast with addicts and alcoholics is that, again, I would say the best place you can do anything is to educate. And the best place is to take this message into high schools, into the kids that are 10 and 11 and 12 years old. Like, knowledge is power. And I think also, as a parent, you want to shelter your kid. You don't want them to know about drugs and addiction. You don't want them to know. But by not letting them see that, you're also enabling that door to be open. If a kid goes and tries crack, they're addicted. Doesn't matter if you tell them 2 weeks later, that's 2 weeks too late. And there are some drugs out there that you only do once and you are addicted. So if we're not talking about it to protect them, we're really adding to the problem. So I think, in my own opinion, the best thing we can do is educate and talk about this freely at a very young age.
So do you think the best way to do that would be to have like, some sort of curriculum to walk them through? Or do you think just hearing testimonials from people that have been addicts, like, or a combination maybe, or what do you think?
I think the best thing to do would be every single town and city all around the world pretty much has different 12-step fellowships where there are addicts and alcoholics in recovery. You'll find rehab centers, you'll find programs of recovery. I would like almost liaison with a high school and somebody there, because for myself, it is amazing to give back. It's amazing for me to tell you my story without shame It feels like I have a purpose. It feels like now I'm making my mess into a message. And if I can help somebody else to either change the course of their life or find recovery, then I'm living in my purpose. I've changed this disaster into something beneficial. So the best way you could attack this would be to go and find somebody that was an addict or alcoholic or is in recovery and have them come into your school and talk in an assembly for half an hour or 45 minutes from their personal experience. Because somebody's personal experience and who knows and has been homeless or has been in addiction, kids and anybody's going to relate so much more than somebody that read it in a book and told you, well, from my opinion, this is what I think. Because, there's no offense, but an addict or an alcoholic can really speak on a whole different level than somebody that read about it in a book.
Yes. Absolutely. So what has changed in your life, I guess, Dora, from being an addict to now? Like, I know you kind of mentioned it's self-love, but like, are there things that you notice? Like, I imagine maybe mental clarity, maybe looking after yourself better, making better decisions. What's been, some of the biggest changes that you've noticed in the last 3 years?
Well, I would say some of the biggest changes, which might sound normal, is eating, showering, sleeping. I mean, the basics. Or when you're an alcoholic or addict like I was, I would often stay awake for 5 days without sleeping. And I would go for 3 days without eating. And then I'd sleep for 4 hours and get up and do it again. So a lot of times when an addict or alcoholic finds recovery, it's been said that our mentality literally stops at the age we started our drinking. So I was off to the races at 15. I emotionally stopped growing and maturing at that age. Like, there are so many basic skill sets that I didn't do and I didn't learn because of that. So for me, just a balanced life. My sleeping habits got so much better. My actual physical stomach, I had headaches daily. I always had a heartburn. I always had Tylenol and Tums, and I ate them daily. And within a week of quitting drinking, it was like, oh, I haven't had a headache for a while. Little things like that I didn't even notice, that have just creeped into my life slowly, and never really even knew. Exercise, relationships, communication, everything changes. And just waking up on a Sunday without a hangover and looking at a blue sky is the best feeling in the world. Like, there's so many wasted days hung over when you're drinking and drugging that it's just, hiding from the world. And that shame and guilt and remorse is lifted right off my back. I've got past mistakes to kind of make amends for and to look back on and correct, but I'm not continually building that mountain of mistakes that are adding up by the repetition of the same thing over and over and over, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, everything, perspective, love for myself, relationships, so many things have changed.
And you said communication and relationships a lot. So for you, that was obviously a big thing. I think for a lot of people, it can be connection, like, depending on how they grew up, but like a lot of people lack that connection. And I think that's so important. I think especially as parents, like, make sure that you are interacting with your kids, that you're allowing them to share things that you maybe don't want them to share, or you feel a little uncomfortable about it. I think just like let them just let it out. I think we all need to have a way to just really communicate at that deep level and have people to share some of those deep, dark thoughts, feelings, desires, whatever, with someone who can actually guide you in a healthy way.
Definitely. You're right on about that, Carla.
Yeah. So anything else, Dora? Like, we're going to wrap it up now, but is there anything else that you still want to say, maybe that you haven't said yet? Anything you'd like to share with our listeners about addiction or your story or whatever?
I would just like to say that if anybody out there is hearing these words, and Carla and I speak right now, if you are sitting on the fence, if you're sober curious, or if you're a loved one of an alcoholic or addict that's still suffering out there, please feel free to check out my podcast. It's called Soberoso, and sharing our passion for recovery. You can find that on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon Music, and I interview people just like myself that share their experiences of what life was like before and after getting clean and sober. So if you're looking for a message of hope or a place of belonging, or just curious about your own behaviors, that's a good place to start, where you can hear all about it.
And maybe get your high schoolers to listen to it too, or, junior hires or whatever. Maybe that would be good. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand how toxic it is. And I think to hear, like this can completely wreck your life, and it can define you, and it can just be like, not define you permanently, but it can just become, like you said, you're stuck at 15, maybe you're stuck at 13, you're stuck at whatever age, and it's so hard to get out of it, I think, Dora, because you're in that, like, you have so many habits, right? And because
Exactly.
you're not thinking clearly, you keep making the same dumb mistakes over and over and over again. So then your life just becomes, like you said, kind of like a big mess. And now
Yeah.
you're taking your mess and you're turning it into a message, and you're helping people, and you're doing these interviews. And I mean, podcast interviews, like, yeah, they're fun and everything, but they do take work, right? You got to reach out to people, you got to connect. And so I think, like, it's a gift that you're offering to the world. And especially at a time right now, I know even like through COVID and stuff, a lot of people I talk to, they're really struggling with addiction. They're really struggling with their mental health, with all that isolation. It's like, it just seems like it's at an absolute crisis point in a lot of communities. So I think this is such a timely podcast at a timely time to say, hey, there is hope. Let's get you recovered. Let's get you some help. So thank you, Dora.
Thank you, Carla, for having me here on the show. And if you are sitting on the fence about drinking and drugging, you know what? Why don't you start off with just a little challenge? Challenge yourself to 30 days without a drink, and just note your own physical changes and behavior, mood, sleeping, eating. And I guarantee you it will be a decision for the better.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much, Dora. I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. I absolutely love that you joined us. I love being able to record these, and I love our guests. It's been so much fun. So thank you. Please like it, share it, comment, do all of the things that you feel like you want to do if you enjoyed this podcast. I really, really appreciate that. And this podcast has been brought to you by my company, Power Fitness Online. So everything that we do locally with our workouts, with our group nutrition coaching, and with all of the other fun events and stuff that we run, we put all of that online. So now you can access everything, even if you're not locally, don't live in our area. So my coaches and I and all my staff, the whole team, we are putting so much work into these workouts. We're filming 5 fresh workouts every single week so that you never have to do the same workout twice. We're also doing group nutrition and personal nutrition coaching so that you get exactly what you need. And you know what the best part is? It's the community. The absolute best part is just knowing that you have the support, that you have the encouragement, that you have everything you need to succeed. So go to powerfitnessonline.com.